All right. Hello, everyone. It is 11 o'clock on the dot, and we're going to go ahead and get started. So I'd like to welcome everyone to Talentful's Hiring Manager Training, Effective Interviewing. I'm Abigail Aikins, and I'm going to be your host on this interview journey that we're about to go on together. So I have been with Talentful for 2 glorious years, and I have been in this RPO model for about the last 10 years. So I do have a lot of experience going in and out of different organizations and helping consult on best practices and the way to really conduct efficient and effective interviews. I would like to start out by thanking my amazing Talentful team for helping me put this presentation together. We saw a need through all of our clients to really put together a training that does encompass all of the things that a hiring manager needs to know when hiring candidates. So thanks to everyone, John and Jade and James and everyone for helping me put this together. Like hiring, it is a team sport. So I do appreciate all of the help here that we have. So jumping in to the first slide here, for this session, we wanted to have everyone go ahead and change your name. But I think since we can't go ahead and change our name right now, if you just want to drop in the chat, I guess we have first names, but just go ahead and put in the company that you're here representing so that we have an idea of where you're coming from, and then also your title. So if you are a hiring manager, what that title is, and we can dig in there. So moving forward, we have Talentful. So we are Talentful. So who is Talentful? Well, I guess I am Talentful to you if you've never heard of us before. But Talentful, what we do is we offer demand recruitment services that focus primarily on sourcing, coordination, and full cycle recruitment. So what truly separates Talentful from the other recruitment companies is our highly skilled recruiting teams are fully embedded. So all of our team members, we look, we act, and we feel like internal partners, just the same as the team members that you have fully relied on. We do offer flexible on-demand recruitment services at a flat monthly fee. About 60% of our roles are tech related right now, and the other 40% typically fall within GTM or G&A. We work with clients across North America, the UK, Germany, but we do also service a number of clients and roles across the globe, including APAC and Central America. So we are here to help with hiring needs, small and large. So if you do have any hiring challenges or bottlenecks or barriers of execution that you would need assistance with, feel free to reach out to us to help with those needs. And in that same vein, what we're going to be doing today is we're actually going to be offering we're going to be picking attendees at random to give away 3 free talent audits. That might not seem like a big deal to some of you who are not familiar with what a talent audit is, and that could speak to the maturity of your organization as well. So with these talent audits, they're very critical in order to understand where your recruitment function, your TA function is operating. If you're a very mature program, if you understand recruiting at a very high level, sophisticated level, or if you're just in the infancy and starting out. So what we'll do with this would actually be 3 full days with the talent director like myself, where we sit down with your team or yourself and we run through the process strategy, attraction. We do an assessment where we dig into a lot of key areas. We look at your tools. And for a lot of these tech members who are here today, we dig into the analytics and then also employer branding. So this is a really, really huge piece that we are going to be giving away. So definitely make sure you put in your company and your title, and we'll make sure that we follow up and we'll pick attendees at the end of this presentation. Wonderful. We'll get into it. So our agenda for today, we are going to discuss hiring teams, the role of the hiring manager, preparing your interview team, the do's and don'ts of interview questions, and then the impact that all of this, if all of this is firing on all cylinders, everyone is working very cohesively, what that impact and effectiveness can actually have on the interview process and candidate experience. We're going to start out with a poll. So our first poll here we are. Who has prior experience as a hiring manager? So if you have hired one person before, you've been a hiring manager. If you've hired 100 people before, you're a hiring manager. This presentation today is going to focus on all aspects, right? So we're going to be able to assist people who maybe haven't hired now, but they're looking to hire in the future. And then also assist folks who have hired 100 or hundreds of people before as well. So Carrie, who do we have going on the chat? Let's see where our poll is landing. All right, we've got 67%. Wow. That is a huge chunk. So 67% of the folks joining this call have been hiring managers previously. So that's great. We can dig in to some of these more mature recruiting practices as well and make sure that we have really fine-tuned processes. All right, hiring overview. We're going to be digging into the hiring process as a whole, and we're also going to be highlighting some hiring misconceptions. So like I touched on before, if this is your first role or your 100th role, this will apply to even the most mature hiring managers. So the first hiring misconception that we have is that the recruiter will do 100% of the work to get a hire. A lot of times hiring managers think a recruiter goes out to the candidate tree and comes back with the perfect candidate, and that's all it takes to get it done. When in all reality, it takes a series of cross collaboration with a lot of different departments to get this done and execute it well. So your recruiter, if you have a sourcer, if you have recruiting coordinators, and then your entire interview team is there to help you assist in making this hire and hopefully making a really great hire. Ultimately, it is your responsibility and your decision to make. So it is your decision to make moving forward. All right, the hiring process. There are a lot of steps involved in the hiring process. And since most of you, 67% of you, have been a hiring manager before, I hope a lot of these terms are familiar to you. If not, definitely reach out to Talentful and we can help you with that. The first one would be an intake meeting. So the intake meeting would be held by the recruitment team and the hiring manager. This would be to kind of set the stage of what we're talking about as far as the job description. The recruiting coordinator could tell you to start blocking out time in your calendar for 2 weeks from now, so that you can ensure that you're set up for success to start interviewing 2-3 weeks from now. Then we have the job posting. Job posting is going to go live. This would be done by your recruitment team. Some organizations might have marketing involved or HR, because we want to ensure that job posting is really on brand and it really fits with the messaging and the brand awareness that you have. Then we move on to resume and phone screening, where this is the recruitment team's responsibility. Then we have the first interview and assessment, second interview, decision making, all done by the hiring manager or the department or department head. And then we have our job offer, which the job offer would be extended by the recruiter. I know this could be controversial. Some hiring managers love to extend offers. We've just had situations where hiring managers extend an offer and might have had compensation wrong or benefits wrong or something along those lines. So it's really crucial that we get this right and we get this right the first time. So make sure you partner with your team in order to get this done correctly. All right, hiring collaboration. Again, partnering with your team. I feel like that is the theme for everything here that we're discussing today. So who are you going to be collaborating with? You are going to be collaborating with several different departments. Again, depending on your organization and the way that your organization is set up, there could be additional departments to this. So you'll have your recruiting partners, which could include your recruiting coordinators, your recruiters, your sourcers, as well as interview teams. So who are those individuals that you select to be a part of your interview? And then your leadership team. Who do you roll up to? Maybe you're working with them as far as what need do we have that we need to fill, and what type of individual do we need to fill that with? And then human resources, or there could be potentially finance department, depending on what you're looking at, or a compensation analyst as well. Defining your recruiting partners and what the role of the recruiting partners are going to do. I know we touched on them briefly in that chart above, but we're going to dig into what the responsibility of that recruiting partner would be. So what will your recruiting partner do for you, or what should they be doing for you? So they should be generating great sourced candidates for you, obviously from multiple sources. So this is ensuring that we're going to market and we're finding the best candidates for you. We want to provide best practices. So your recruiter can give you strategic advice based on their experience. They can also go and pull market insights on what, if you're hiring a network engineer, how many network engineers are in this area in Tacoma, Washington, or where are these individuals located? So they can give you that. So make sure that you lean on them for any of these questions that you might have throughout the entire hiring process. The other piece was they're going to help you manage the hiring process as a whole and provide updates. It's kind of like herding cats. There's a lot of different people. There's a lot of different hands in here. So we want to make sure that your interview team, that the recruiter, you're all on the same page. There should never be a point where you're chasing the recruiter for updates or they're chasing you for updates. Engaging and communicating with candidates. So the recruiter will make sure that they're engaged and they're keeping that candidate excited about what we have going on. Hey, we're here at Talentful. We're doing these really exciting things. We're changing the barriers of recruiting, and we're driving forward in innovation. And they should be keeping that excitement and that high level of engagement up the entire time. And then we should also be providing and leveraging tools that help in your success. So what tools do we have that are accessible, which now more than ever, we have a lot of tools available to us. So we want to make sure we lean into those tools, and your recruiting partner is teaching you how to use those tools. So if it's an outreach message using GEM, if it's LinkedIn Recruiter, if it's an applicant tracking system, which we refer to as an ATS a lot of the times, market research or market maps, your recruiting partner should be bringing all of this to your attention and walking you through that. Now that we've talked about what the recruiting partner is responsible for, we're here to chat about what you as the hiring manager is responsible for, and as far as ownership goes. So in the chat, we would love to have you as a hiring manager with your experience that you've had previously, post what is the most crucial factor for achieving a seamless hiring process. So what have you done that you've seen a very high level of success with? And then if you haven't been a hiring manager before, but you're going to be a hiring manager, what do you feel like is going to be the most crucial part of hiring and being successful? And I see a couple of these notes. John, I see you're working with the finance team, definitely crucial. And I don't see it in here yet. And I don't see many people saying what they've done as far as seen success in hiring. One of the biggest pieces that I've seen success, yes, okay, there it is. This is exactly what I was going to say, Bryce. Overly communication, consistent communication. These are all really great examples. Like we touched on before, you as a hiring manager shouldn't have to chase the recruiter to say, how many people do we have interviewing? Do we have great candidates lined up? Do we have anyone at final stages? What do you need more from me? It should be the recruiter bringing that to you, and then vice versa. If you interviewed 10 great candidates and don't put any of your feedback in, that's going to be very, very difficult for that recruiter to know, are we doing well? Are we pushing forward? Any of those pieces. So really, communication is definitely key. Alignment between all parties involved is crucial. We'll touch on this further in the presentation as well, but really ensuring that you get this right up front is crucial to ensure that the process goes really smoothly. All right, so what is a hiring manager's role? So what is your role within this, which we've touched on a little bit, but just to make it a little more black and white and to leave this with you when we go. So ensure a positive candidate experience, which should be on everyone's radar at every stage of the interview. Recruiting coordinator, sourcer, any person. We want to make sure, but this is really, the hiring manager wants to make sure they're very invested. They want to make sure that this person has a great candidate experience. We also want to provide the most in-depth description of the role. So as a hiring manager, you are going to know a lot more than we are as recruiters about the technical aspects of this position. So you're going to provide very in-depth details of what the day-to-day of this individual might look like. You're going to also manage the hiring team throughout the process. So every individual that you've selected to be part of this process, you're going to want to make sure that you help your recruiter, and you're ultimately responsible for managing that as well. Partner with the recruiter to create interview questions. This is when you're going to work with your recruiter to make sure that we're asking questions that probe for the right answers, right? If you're hiring maybe a network engineer and you know that they need to know what a spanning tree is, you could provide your recruiter with a coined response. Okay, what is a spanning tree? Me as a recruiter, I know that unless they say X, Y, and Z, that we need to pass on this candidate and move forward with someone else. So coming up with some of those really insightful questions will really help your recruiter only bring you the top talent and rule out more individuals that might get passed. So this is your responsibility as well. Reviewing candidates and providing feedback. We've talked about, again, a theme. Ensure that you are reviewing candidates and providing that at least 24 hours in response to recruiters providing them to you, as well as decision-making in the process. So again, all of us are here to help you make this decision and bring a lot of great candidates in front of you, but ultimately it is you're responsible for delivery. So this is your decision. All right, being an effective hiring manager. Throughout this process around communication, make sure you seek as much clarity as possible during your meeting with the recruiter. So if they throw out terms or acronyms or things that you don't fully understand, say, hey, this is what you can expect from me. What can I expect from you? It might even be as simple as, hey, I don't check Slack. I would love it if you would text me. Or can you email me all the candidates at once to review rather than doing this? So just make sure that expectations are set very clearly in the beginning. As well as schedule interview time blocks to avoid overlapping priorities. So if you open a role this week, a week, 2 weeks from now, you're going to have great interview or candidates to interview. So you want to make sure you block out time moving forward. So if you are only giving your coordinator or recruiter 30 minutes a week, and it's going to take 10 hours to hire this individual, you are weeks out from getting this person hired. So this is something we definitely want to focus on, and we can use this to set ourselves up for success. And ensure if you don't have an interview, you go ahead and have that time back to yourself to do something else that I'm sure we all have other things that we can catch up on during that time. So blocking out that time is really going to help us be very efficient and effective. Leverage your recruiting and interview team. You aren't in this alone. You have a lot of people here to help you throughout this hiring process. Leverage your outreach impact. So it's really important sometimes that the right voice comes across when reaching out to individuals. So if you're a hiring manager, your recruiter might have already reached out to someone, but maybe they didn't respond to that recruiter. But hearing it from you, from a VP of engineering, hearing it from a CEO, that you actually looked at their profile, you're excited about their background, and you want to chat with them, is really going to drive that response rate up. So that's something that your recruiter might partner with. And this is where you get to utilize your power of influence a little bit as well. Make sure that you're stepping in there to leverage your outreach. The other piece is that we want to make sure that we are open to adjustments. So if the plan isn't working, try something else. I come from a skydiving and aviation background. In this industry, it is more life or death, I think, than it is in recruitment. But it is an infamous motto. I live my life by it. My father taught me it years and years ago. If you're trying something and it's not working, let's try something else. So ensure that you continue to iterate and learn and adapt as the process continues. Another hiring misconception, which we have our unicorn, or James and I were discussing, could be a purple squirrel, depending on what you're looking for, is everyone has in mind when you're hiring a candidate, you have the perfect candidate that checks all of the boxes and that they are the unicorn candidate exists. So a lot of times hiring managers will think that this perfect person that checks all these boxes does exist. Sometimes it doesn't exist, and more times than others, we've had to create 2 jobs based off of 1 job description. So if we continue to wait for the perfect candidate, this could cause delays in the hiring process and then cause you to pass on someone that would have been great because we don't have the perfect candidate. Excuse me. All right. So just to recap on interview responsibilities, we'll leave this with you again. So where the hiring manager is responsible for and what the recruiter is responsible for. Ultimately, we want all of these engines firing together, right? Communicate, alignment. We want to ensure that we're all helping throughout the process, ensuring that we are all on the same page. The role of the interview team. This can sometimes be the hardest piece of the interview process. Again, we work in a people business. We work with people. People don't tend to do everything that we tell them to do right when we tell them to do. So this is our interview team. So the more we prepare our team and prep our team, the better we are going to be when we need to roll this out. So how do you prepare your hiring team effectively? So getting feedback from your interviewers is as important as having them participate in the interview. When you're unable to provide feedback or garner feedback from your interviewers, you run the risk of recording inaccurate feedback, providing a poor candidate experience, losing a great candidate to a competing offer, and spending more time on the interview process than necessary. These first two, interview questions and alignment, really sit very well together. This is where we want to make sure that we do our kickoff call, which we'll dig into here in a moment, where we make sure we talk about core competencies. So why are we, either backfilling or we're not backfilling this role, we're changing this role into X, Y, and Z. Like, what is the business problem that we're trying to solve by bringing this individual in? So really talking to your team about the whys behind why we're making this hire, and then ensure that we're digging in on core competencies. So everyone involved in that interview process is focusing on one particular competency rather than the dreaded interview of, tell me about your resume, tell me about your background. We've all done that interview where you've gone and 5 people have asked you the exact same questions. Again, feedback expectations. We want to ensure you're leading by example. So if you're the hiring manager and you're not inputting feedback within 24 hours or quicker, we want to make sure that you are doing that so that you set the tone for your team, and ensuring that your team is well trained and know what they can and cannot ask candidates. This need for putting this hiring manager training together came from a lot of our clients not having that or not prepping candidates ahead of time, where interviewers are asking inappropriate questions to candidates. It is extremely important to prep our interview team so that they're prepared and they're ready to go and put our best foot forward as a whole and as a company. And that leads us into several reasons why candidates choose your team. So one, they believe in your team's vision. So they have clarity about where the team is going and how they will make an impact in that growth. 2, the company's overall benefit and rewards program is very appealing to them. They believe they will be fairly compensated for their contributions. 3, the company brand and innovations. They believe in what your company is doing and are users of the product or services. And then my ultimate favorite, which I feel like I like to live by, is that they want to work with you as their leader. So they believe that you know the product, you're passionate about the product, and that you genuinely care about the impact of their growth, and you're going to be there to help usher them along the way. For the kickoffs and the debriefs, these are 2 of the bread, I guess, the bread pieces to your sandwich. You want to ensure that you start with a kickoff and then end with a debrief. If this is your first time hiring, ensuring that you have both of these will really make sure that that alignment is there. I think Jade said alignment, and then John also said set up on expectation. And I think another individual said like consistency as well. So if this is your first time hiring an individual, an interview debrief is crucial. If this is the 100th software engineer that your team has hired, an interview debrief might not be as critical. The interview debrief I've seen work in several different ways. A lot of times when you get to the end, everyone interviews Abi Aikins and one person says, strong no, never hire this person, she's terrible. And one person says, strong yes, Abby's amazing, let's hire her right now. When we go into that debrief, it's a great opportunity for a recruiter to facilitate that conversation, to talk through the pros and the cons and what happened in that interview and help get all of those parties aligned. There's a really big possibility that maybe there was a misalignment as far as like what the expectations were for this individual, and that could be where the challenge is. And it is also a great opportunity to spot any biases. Does your hiring team have any biases around hiring this individual, or is there a challenge with the interview process as well? We are on to our next hiring misconception, which leads nicely from the previous one, is that hiring needs to be unanimous. This could also be controversial. We sometimes feel like unless everyone says yes, we can't hire that person. This is something that definitely can be a misconception. Your interview team is extremely important, but at the end of the day, you're responsible for delivery. So I think it is really important that you make that decision, you weigh the pros and cons, and have conversations around that to push forward and drive answers. Definitely. And I see that, Zach, interview debriefs, I think they're wonderful. I would love to have those on every single interview that we have. I think it's really important, and to find actionable feedback. Sometimes when we get into this, we needed to hire someone yesterday mentality, I think that sometimes they can be skipped depending on process and how much time you have, if you have a competing offer and all the rest of that goes into it as well. So after chatting about the misconception of hiring needs to be a unanimous decision, what do you do when you get pushback on? So if you go into an interview and one person is, adamant, we don't hire this person, you have to take and consider, who is that individual? What was their interview feedback? This is where we want to make sure we have that debrief. So what can you do? You can ensure that you address this during a debrief meeting. So you can open a discussion to reassess the role and the candidates. What was that individual asked to assess? And does that make sense? Answer any questions that your interview team may have, like Zach said in the debrief. It's a great opportunity for the recruiter to be very involved in that. Revisit the questions you're asking candidates, and then clarify any of the scoring metrics. What are we looking at? What are we digging into? And what are those specifics as well? Now we dig into the interview question do's and don'ts. This is where we ensure we do not put our foot directly in our mouth during an interview. We're going to focus firstly on what makes a great interview question. So the elements of a great interview question. So your recruiter should run this process with you. They should be running this element with you. And it's a really great point of collaboration for you and the recruiter to come up with very thoughtful questions. This is like we touched on before. If you're hiring a network engineer and there's 3 or 4, how does TCP establish a handshake or whatever it might be, ask those specific questions, have your recruiter ask those previously to rule them out. But moving forward, you want to make sure that you have those as well. Very thoughtful questions. Each question you and your recruiter choose should have a purpose. So figure out what it is that you're trying to assess. Maybe it's growth mindset. So ask a question that gets into the bottom of what would make this person with growth minded. Excuse me. All right. Ask this person to get the bottom of growth minded in a business setting. Excuse me. Oh, all right. And then once I'm sorry, everyone. Oh, technical difficulties over here. All right. So once the question is specific, define what, oh my goodness. Ooh. All right, I'm going to make it. All right, once the question is specific, define what great, good, and bad answers could look like. So this will ensure that we have a framework for assessing answers. So it'll keep any of the guesswork out of it. So the more strategic that we can be with how we assess questions, the easier and the quicker that it will be. So we'll flow through the interview process quicker and quicker. All right. We want to ask questions that are action focused. One more back. Thanks, Gary. We want to ask questions that are action focused. We only have a short amount of interview time to assess how someone would act in our workplace. So it's essential that we get insight regarding how to handle specific scenarios and then what their behaviors have been in the past or what they would be. So this would be an example of, tell me about the most exciting project you've worked on and how did you contribute to this project, or what piece did you own specifically? We want to ensure that the process is standardized. So part of creating fair interview process is to ensure that all of our questions can be asked to every single candidate to stay away from any biases or legal aspects. So it's essential to get insight regarding how to handle specific scenarios and what their behaviors will be. I'm so sorry, everyone. These allergies are killing me this year. All right. So standardization is critical in as far as this process in order to be successful. We want to avoid yes or no questions. So these do not give us insight on the person we're speaking to. If someone says yes or no, that's very important. So we want to make sure we're answering open-ended questions. So they're more thought-provoking and allow the candidate to elaborate on their experiences. All right, lastly, your question should allow for in-depth answers. So we want to stay away from those yes or no answers. If you have a question in your mind after hearing an answer, ask the question. We don't want to leave anything unanswered on the table. So feel free to ask questions as well. All right. So these are our protected categories. Everyone around employment should be familiar with these being our protected categories. So protected categories are a group of people with common characteristics who are legally protected from discrimination on the basis of that characteristic. So we have very strict policies around such in the US. A candidate's protected category are not relevant to their ability to interview or to perform a job. So any of these topics up here, we want to stay far away from them. So avoid mentioning your personal protected categories as well. So parental status, nationality, veteran status, because that could be considered an invitation for that candidate to actually reciprocate and give up their information as well. So make sure that you stay away from that. I know it's very easy to do. So note, on a lunch interview, if you're doing a chat, just having a conversation with them, just be very careful about what is discussed during any informal small talk. It's easier to go into the territory of protected categories, but it's still equally inappropriate. In this scenario, if someone does bring up personal information, it's very easy to just redirect a simple and friendly, oh, okay, great. And then move the conversation right back to the content of the interview and what's important and critical. All right, so I see a question. What about location even when the role is remote? Location will vary depending on state to state. I know that we have some individuals here who are stateside and we have some in EMEA as well. So it's going to really differentiate. You're going to want to make sure that you connect with your HR business partners to ensure what the rules and regulations might be for your location. I hope that answers your question, Gita. We'll jump into a couple of questions, what you can and cannot ask. And so I'd like to see people in the chat put yes or no. So first question, are you a US citizen? Is this something that you can or cannot ask a candidate? Yes or no answers in the chat, please. All right, I'm seeing a lot of no's. This is correct. You cannot ask that question. That is correct. Nice job, everyone. Are you legally eligible to work in the US? Is this a question that you can or cannot ask? Whoa, look at this educated panel. Yes, you are able to ask this question. That is wonderful. All right. What is your sexual identification? Is this something you can or cannot ask a candidate? No, no, no. Yep. All right. No, that is it. You cannot ask that question. All right. We've got 3 more. Have you ever been convicted of a crime that directly relates to the position you are applying for? Can you ask this question? Ooh. I'm seeing no's and yeses. All right, and the answer is yes, you can ask this question. Do we know why you can't? I guess it does depend on the country, exactly. Do we know why you can answer this question? Correct, Natalie Childs. On the very end of that question, it says, as it directly relates to the position that you are applying for. That is the critical factor of this role as well. All right, what is your marital status? Can you ask this question? You cannot ask that question. Correct. All right. Do you have any disabilities? Can you ask this question? No, you cannot ask this question. That is correct. All right, wonderful. You all did a wonderful job at that, also depending on the country. So we can leave that one with you, John. So what to do if a candidate asks about some of these specific benefits, maybe benefits or compensation or equity or title, culture, growth opportunities, or company strategy. Are these typically areas that hiring managers here speak to, or typically do you pass these to your recruiters? I'd be curious if anyone says that you own them or you pass them off. What we like to say is best practice would be to defer to your recruiting partner. So let them know that a recruiter will reach out. So if you're talking compensation, equity, or title, remember titles are not free. If you would like to up-level this person to a senior rather than a mid-level, or from an entry level or junior to a mid-level, that is not a free title change. We can't just give them out. They don't grow on trees. So definitely refer to your recruiting partner and you'll want to chat with them. Benefits as well. Typically, your recruiter would send benefits after the interview, either before an onsite or after an onsite. Culture, you can definitely speak to the vision, the mission of your group, the values, and how your team fits in an organization. It would be great to have like a one-pager cheat sheet for yourself as well. Growth opportunities. So the candidate might be asking you about upward mobility. How long will I be in this position? Is there an opportunity to grow? This would be a great opportunity to speak about the vision for your team and then any training that you can give as well. We also have company strategy. So tread lightly on these. Sometimes we tend to give out too much information that might not necessarily be public knowledge. So definitely make sure that it's better safe than sorry to give away some secrets. All right, what to do if a candidate talks too much or too little, performs poorly during the interview, wants feedback on their interview, or brings up personal information. So in any case, you can walk through all the worst case scenarios in your head. So we'd like to calm your nerves a little by discussing some of these. We've all been in interviews as we've all had someone who talks too much as well. So in this scenario, this might be politely cutting a question short and moving on, which is very uncomfortable. I've had a lot of hiring managers refuse to do this and they let the candidate just chat the entire interview and they don't get to ask any of the questions that they need. So remember, it's up to you to provide a timeline and a current assessment. So make sure that you move them on when you need to. So keep it in mind. Don't be rude. Just say, thank you, to make sure we have time for multiple questions. I'm going to move on, but we can come back to this if there's time at the end. So being able to kind of stand up and put your name in there is very important as well. If someone is performing very poorly in their interview, typically you would want to try and reformat the question and ask the question in a different way. Maybe they didn't quite understand what you were asking. So don't let the candidate struggle the entire time throughout the interview. Make sure that you rechange it. If it's a phone interview, you want to give them an adequate opportunity to demonstrate their skills. If you feel like they're definitely not a fit, you can politely end the interview and then submit feedback. If you're on an on-site interview, find questions to fill the interview time, then ping the recruiter when you're done interviewing and let them know that the interview went poorly. Don't take it upon yourself to contact the other interviewers because this will only bias them, right? We want to stay away from any biases that are possible. If one individual wants feedback on their interview, we cannot give feedback during an interview. It does put us at legal risk. So you would want to make sure that if someone asks you, hey, how am I doing? Did I do well? Or am I doing well? You want to make sure that we don't answer those questions. Being direct is fine. So you could say, yes, you've answered all the questions that I've asked. And then you can explain that the recruiter will follow up with them as well. If someone brings up personal information, like we touched on earlier, you can make sure that you redirect them. All right, on to the last section that we have, which is the results. So our results section, which is the most critical and what I feel like people care the most about, is why does all this hiring manager information help us? How does this help us be more efficient and effective? There's two main criteria that we measure here at Talentful, along with a lot of other data points as well. We measure the time to fill and the time to hire, which you might be familiar or might not be familiar with. So the time to fill is typically what recruiting manager or hiring managers care most about. This would be from the time that you open a job, the day that the job goes live, till the day that you have that person sitting in a seat and starting the position. The time to hire would be the time that that one particular candidate enters the timeline and then starts. So you could have a time to fill of 50 days and a time to hire of 20 days. Excuse me. The reason recruiters care so much about the time to hire is because we want to make sure that that one particular candidate's journey through the entire process was efficient and quickly. The reason recruiting manager or hiring managers care so much about the time to fill is because they don't care how long it takes that one candidate to go through the pipeline. They care how much time it takes for that position to be filled in general. So with this data, thinking about this, here at Talentful, we asked several other companies, LinkedIn, Greenhouse, Lever, a couple other ATS systems, for benchmark data based on these numbers. They actually didn't have access to this. So this is a really cool thing that we were actually able to do, is pull the data from all of the clients that we work with to set benchmarks for these. So we actually have enterprise, startup, and scale up numbers based off of the 83 clients that we have on what those numbers should look like. So if you're a new company that's starting up and you don't know what your time to hire or time to fill target should be, those are actually data points that we have that we could help you assess with. So this is actually really, really interesting. So with that data, we pulled up a timeline for you that we can actually show a hypothetical timeline. So I just, for the sake of this presentation, did an average across, I think it's tech, marketing, G&A, and GTM. So we're at 34 days for an enterprise level company. So typically your time to hire, which would be from the time that that position opens till the time that person has filled offer approval, would be 34 days. So this would show about how long it would take to hire that individual. I know the typical response when most of my recruiters ask a hiring manager, they say, okay, when do you need to hire this person? The most common answer would be yesterday, a week from now. It could be a month, 6 months out, whatever that is. This helps you gauge that timeline and be a little bit more proactive with that time to hire. Yes, it is definitely really impressive. And a big piece to call out with that, John, would be, this would be best case scenario. Everyone is working cohesively. You have a really great process in place. Everyone understands their role, their responsibility, and that you understand what you should be doing. So it's really great depending on the group. And we actually have some really great success rates with some clients where we were actually able to bring that number down for them dramatically. So we can find, during that talent audit, we can find some of those gaps that we could actually fill for you. That's great. 45 days is also great. So just to recap, we have covered a lot of information in this 44 minutes that we have been together. We have chatted about what your role is as a hiring manager, how to partner with your recruiter, leadership, HR, how to manage your interview team, what you shouldn't ask candidates, how you should structure interviews and what you should ask candidates with open-ended questions, and then what great can look like with Talentful. This is a lot of information that the team was able to put together. There is a lot more information. We could chat about this topic for hours and hours, but I know you're probably already falling asleep from hearing me chat for just 45 minutes. So would love to chat more specifically about how this could pertain specifically to your company or to your challenges or to your groups. and we are happy to do so. So before we sign off, just want to remind everyone about Talentful. We do offer on-demand recruitment services that focus primarily on sourcing, recruitment, coordination, and full cycle recruitment. We work across North America, UK, Germany, and we also service a number of clients across the globe, including APAC and Central America. And what truly separates Talentful from other recruitment companies is our highly skilled recruiting teams are fully embedded. So again, we look, we act, and we feel like internal partners. And we do offer flexible on-demand recruitment services at a flat monthly fee. So with that, you can see here, these are all our offerings, and that concludes our chat today. I hope that everyone enjoyed today's discussion. I hope that it was thought-provoking and there were a couple of ideas here that you didn't necessarily have in your toolbox of skills. I do look forward to hearing from anyone that wants to dive in deeper or who has any questions that they would like to just chat with me one-on-one. I am more than happy to dig in or to help with any of those hiring needs. If anyone has any questions in the meantime, we do have a couple minutes here if anyone wants to go ahead and ask those. And if we don't have any questions, we will go ahead and leave. Oh, thank you, Amanda. I feel so bad. Sorry about that. Allergies are out of control in Seattle. So thank you so much, everyone. It was great to see you, Shilpi. Oh, it's wonderful to see you. Looking forward to hearing from everyone. Message me if you need anything, and have a wonderful Wednesday, and we will chat with all of you soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.